Hey guys, what's going on? It's ya boy, Bowser Jr. Fan 13 here, and today I'm actually doing something a little bit different on my channel. Pretty shocking, isn't it? So I decided I'm going to do some top 10 videos. Basically, I'm doing a top 10 list of my favorite characters, or favorite games, or favorite something from the games, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing now. So since this is my first top 10, I thought, hey, why not do a top 10 video of my top 10 favorite Final Fantasy characters. Now, I'm going to be listing them from each different game. It won't be like from favorite to most favorite. It's mostly going to be listing my favorite characters from each different Final Fantasy game, like the first game to all the way to the 10th game and stuff. But just to be clear, I'm only going to be doing Final Fantasies 1 through 10 because I'm more fond with the classic 10 Final Fantasy games. I'm not too fond with the newer ones like 11 or 15, so we're leaving them out. Another thing, I'm not including main protagonist or main antagonist in this list because, well, mainly because they're already my favorite by default, but I'm going to be including only just, not the main protagonist or main villains, but just some characters that are, whether they're NPCs, party members, heck, even if they're just, bosses. Yeah, alright. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into this video. Final Fantasy 1. This is the first ever Final Fantasy game that ever existed. In fact, it's one of the first Final Fantasy games that I've actually played in the series. This game didn't get me into the series, but it is without a doubt one of the best and classic games of all time. As for characters, well, there aren't really that many main characters, since basically you could choose who do you want to be your main characters, or what kind of class you want them to be and such, and you can name them. For me, I believe that my favorite class in the game has to be the Red Mage. As the game says, the Red Mage is the jack of all trades, master of none. What this basically means is that this Red Mage character, it can basically carry any armor, weapons that the warriors and knights can use, and it could even use both black magic and white magic, like the black and white mage, which is so awesome. Though it can't carry all of them, and it can't learn all the black magic and white magic, so that's why it's the jack of all trades. Still, it's a good mage to have into your party whenever you're playing the game. Overall, the Red Mage is super cool, and it's at number 1. Alright, so at number 2, we're at Final Fantasy 2. So, for those of you who don't know, Final Fantasy 2 was a game that was in Japan. We did not get this game until they remastered it, or re-released it, or got the reproduction copies to make it. It's basically the same as it was with 3 and 5, so yeah. Anyways, as for this game in general, I'll be honest, I didn't really get much into this. I mean, the story was good, the music was great, and even though it introduced the cool stuff like the Chocobos, Cid, Leviathan, and a whole bunch of cool iconic characters, the leveling up system wasn't that good, the encounter rate was atrocious, and the items were too expensive. That's why I couldn't get into this. But just because it had stuff like that doesn't mean I didn't like any of the characters. My favorite character is one of the 4 main characters that you see at the beginning of the game, Leon. Anyways, but Leon, you don't immediately get to use him for the entire game. I mean, you use him at the beginning of the game, but it's only in a scripted battle. He doesn't rejoin your party until at the near end of the game, when it's revealed that that the Emperor is back to life and he's gonna, you know. So Leon joins Furion and the others to help them out, because why not? I don't know what he's like in the game overall, but I can guarantee you he's pretty strong. And I think he's honestly one of the coolest looking characters of all time, and it's pretty cool to have a party member who stays with you till the end, unlike all the rest of the party members who just straight up die. It's really awesome. Overall, I think Leon is really cool, and he's at number 2. Alright, so at number 3, we have Final Fantasy 3. So anyways, like 2, we didn't get this game until later on. It's one of the coolest games in the franchise, but it's not that popular. Mainly because it's hard and because of the whole, different scenarios that needed to be required or something like that. It did, however, have the job class system, which was pretty amazing. I mean, you get to literally choose whatever job you want to be. It was really cool. Even it featured new jobs and introduced Moogles and summons. As for my favorite character in this game, my favorite character has got to be one of the bosses that you fight in this game. And this boss is a skeleton called Hein. Yeah, it's this guy. I don't know why, but for some reason, this character has stood out to me the most, despite me not reaching this guy, mainly because I haven't played 3 that much. What makes this guy really cool is the fact that, well, his battle is kind of interesting. I mean, sure, he doesn't have a lot of moves when it comes to attacks and stuff, but he does have this cool ability called Barrier Shift, where he could switch his weaknesses, and you have to straight up find out what's his weakness in order to beat him. I mean, that'll clearly get you on your toes and help you to try and stay focused, though it's gonna be kinda complicated, but hey, who cares? And overall, Hein is pretty cool. He's like so underrated. He's like the one Final Fantasy character, I believe, who is so underrated. Yet, I think he should get a more, a more bigger role in the games, or even, I don't know, maybe be a playable character in future Final Fantasy games. Cause I don't know, it's just, this guy is so cool. I mean, he looks cool. Like, look at his design. I mean, for a skeleton, he's really stylish. I'll tell you that.
Thank you. Finally, someone notices!
Number 4, we have Final Fantasy 4. This game was released in America, and it was known as Final Fantasy 2 because, again, the whole localization problem and stuff like that. Final Fantasy IV is my second favorite game in the franchise. It's honestly the most good-looking and the most beautiful, well thought out game that has a big story, amazing iconic characters, best emotional and funny and iconic scenes, of course. It's just overall really fun, and the gameplay is really cool. The active time battle system, it's really difficult to get through with all this, but hey, it really makes things new to the game. Anyways, my favorite character from this game is a boss battle, and one of those boss battles is the Elemental Fiends. One of those being Barbaricia, the Fiend of Wind. So she's on number 4 in this list. So Barbaricia is one of Golbez's elemental archfiends that you fight in the game. You fight her after Tella sacrifices himself to use Meteor on Golbez, but fails. He saves Kain from mind control, and you free Rosa from her death. But of course, it all doesn't go well when Barbaricia ends up fighting you guys and stuff like that. But of course, you also end up getting a rematch against her in the Giant's Dungeon after recruiting Fusoya. Her battle overall, she's like one of the hardest bosses in the game. Like, you gotta be really smart in order to beat her, because what she likes to do in her battle, she mostly uses some tornado spells like Malice Storm. She'll use lightning and sleep and silence spells. And she also has this ability where she can ride her hair like the wind and basically is invulnerable to all of your attacks. The only way how to get through her hair tornado attack is by using the flare or holy spell, which is her weakness, or if you take advantage of Kane's jumping ability. Now that's a really cool, awesome battle strategy that I like. And of course the overall design, well, I mean, if we're gonna talk about design, I mean, I don't know why Square Enix designed her to be like this, but I think she's honestly one of the beautiful characters in this game. Like, she's the most beautiful female character in this game, in my opinion. Overall, she's a really enjoyable boss battle, and I wish, like, they did a little bit more with her in the games, just like how they did with some of the other fiends or something like that. And yeah. Oh, and by the way, all of you on the internet who keeps on making those rumors about her liking women and not liking men, please stop making that rumor, because I know for a fact that's not true. Final Fantasy V. This was another one of the games in the franchises with the localization problems, but anyways, I should stop talking about that and just talk about the game in general. I've played a little bit of Final Fantasy V on the Game Boy Advance, and it was really cool. I mean, the story, it's kind of wacky. It sometimes barely takes itself so seriously and have all these weird and funny moments and stuff. It brought back the job class system from 3, only it did it better. And the overall game was pretty good. I mean, I didn't get too much into this like 4 and 1 and other games like that, but it is enjoyable to play. My favorite character from this game, well, it's another boss battle on this list, and this boss happens to be the most iconic boss in the entire franchise, Gilgamesh. Yeah, of course I would pick Gilgamesh on this list. I mean, why not? I mean, he's based off of a Japanese soldier who carries a whole bunch of swords, like, who has the same name as him. Like, he's based off of, like, I guess a Japanese god, and that's pretty neat. His overall role in the game, he's basically ex-Death's servant, wanting to serve him and whatnot, and basically he wants to look for a fun challenge against the strongest warriors. And I can understand that, because you see him not just in Final Fantasy V, you'll see him in ports, remasters, and other Final Fantasy games, and it's pretty cool. And I believe that it's really amazing that they have a type of boss like that who could just go to different worlds and just fight whoever he finds. It's a really cool concept. I like this guy's theme song, by the way, and his personality, well, I mean, he looks like he's a very serious warrior, but he's kind of cocky. He's a bit clumsy and stuff, and he has this big rivalry against Sparts. I kind of find it hilarious. Yeah, but don't underestimate Gilgamesh. He is, without a doubt, one of the best and most strongest characters in Final Fantasy. Overall, Gilgamesh is pretty awesome, and Square Enix, if you're watching this, please, I beg of you, put him in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I would love to have a boss fight. I would love to have a boss fight against this guy, trust me.
How long I've waited! Gilgamesh fights again!
Number 6, we have the one Final Fantasy game that literally everyone knows about. Everyone talks about this game because all Final Fantasy fans love this game to death. Final Fantasy VI. Alright, in my opinion, this is not my top favorite game, but it is one of my personal favorites. It's my 4th favorite in the franchise. I mean, at least I love this game a lot. It's what counts. Anyways, this game, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, so emotional, the story is good, the characters are great, the soundtrack is amazing. I could just go on about it. But anyways, I'm here to talk about one of the characters. Now, there are a lot of characters to enjoy. Besides Terra and Kefka, my personal favorite character is one of the party members who joins you in the game. In fact, I think he would make an excellent secondary protagonist next to Terra. And this guy is known as Edgar Ronnie Figaro. Edgar is a guy who lives in Figaro Castle. He's a king. He's also a great mechanic. He's one of the characters who wants to stop Kefka. And of course, he lives with his brother Sabin. So, his overall design, well, I mean, it's a Final Fantasy game, and I think he looks pretty awesome, not gonna lie. Anyways, basically what happens is that since he became a king, his brother decides to live on his own and stuff like that. So, now Edgar just rules over his kingdom and will do anything to protect the world, and he even helps Terra and the others stop the Gestalian Empire from destroying everything and taking over. So, anyways, when it comes to battles, oh my gosh, Edgar is outrageously the best at battles. Mainly because he's the most OP party member in the entire game. His drill, his crossbows, all of his other tools, they do massive damage. And he's a mechanic class. I did not know that Edgar would have such cool skills like that. Like, all those tools are so powerful. Like, how come Sid from Final Fantasy IV couldn't have any of that? Well, overall, Edgar is just so awesome, and I'd love to see him in more games. He's at number 6, and he's a real ladies' man, believe me.
Nice. Is she hot?
No, it's not like that. It's a noble cause. I'm keeping her sense of hope alive.
Don't worry, man, I get it. I've let on plenty of girls to get some tail.
Don't be so vulgar.
Hey, she's been sending you nudes. Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now arrived at number 7, which is Final Fantasy VII, and oh my gosh, I will tell you guys straight up that this game is the main reason why I'm a Final Fantasy fan. This game is what's got me into the franchise. I love Final Fantasy VII, everything about it. The story, the cutscenes, the gameplay, the soundtrack, the characters. It's so beautiful. It's my number 1 favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. In fact, it's one of my favorite video games of all time by default. Anyways, there are a lot of cool iconic characters like Cloud, Sephiroth, Tifa, Barret, and such and such. One of my favorite characters that I believe that are my most favorite, there's this one character. He's one of the optional characters that you can decide to pick on your journey, and this character, of course, is known as Vincent Valentine. Vincent Valentine is just a half-human, half-vampire-like character who's had a crazy origins. He was originally working for Shinra. He was a member of the Turks. He was the bodyguard of Professor Gosp, Lucretia, and Hojo during the Genova project. He was in love with Lucretia, but Hojo ends up getting married to her, and now, because of the whole Genova project, putting Genova cells in their son, it's gotten all weird and stuff, and Vincent thought, this is too weird for Lucretia, I can't allow this. But Hojo, of course, replies just by shooting him with a gun and then doing experiments on him. And now things don't look good for Vincent. Yeah, I guarantee that if Shinra came back crying for him for help, he'd guaranteed you straight up deny their request.
I don't know what you're up to, but I want absolutely no part of it.
After being isolated for 30 years in Nibelheim Mansion, he later on gets awakened by Cloud and the gang. He joins them in order to stop Sephiroth. He wants to get revenge on Hojo and check if Lucretia is alright. And later on in the series, he helps out the gang and Advent Children. He gets his own spin-off game, Dirge of Cerberus, which has his own adventure, and it's really cool. Now to talk about his battle whole strategies in the game. Vincent, if you couldn't tell by the image on the screen, he fights using a gun. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But other than that, he can also use these cool berserkery mode transformations that he can do. He can turn into a werewolf, a Frankenstein monster, a serial killer with a hockey mask wielding a chainsaw. Wow, that's so cool. And what's even more awesome is that he can even turn into Chaos, the final boss from Final Fantasy I. That is so freaking awesome. A horror movie based character with all these cool transformations and a crazy backstory. What more could you ask for? Overall, Vincent Valentine is the best character in the game. I would always recruit him in the game whenever I'm playing Final Fantasy VII, and he's at number 7. Oh, and oh my gosh, I can't wait to see him in the remake.
Guess I have no choice. It's time to save the world.
Number 8, we arrive at Final Fantasy VIII. Alright, so this is the 8th game in the franchise. I don't know too much about this game, mainly because I haven't played it, but I'll tell you what I know. I mean, it's better than Final Fantasy II, but, well, the whole drawing magic system, it's kinda whack, and not gonna lie. And as for main characters, none of them really, gave me the certain appeal to, like them and stuff. But Squall and Ultimacia were literally the only characters that I ever cared about in this game. But Laguna Lori tells me otherwise. Laguna is a temporarily main character playable in Final Fantasy VIII. You only get to play as him during the dream sequences. I don't know why, but it's kind of crazy. The character himself, he eventually becomes president of Esther, I believe it's what it is called. He fights alongside his two companions, Cryos and Ward, and yeah. As for the character himself, well, he looks pretty cool, not gonna lie. And anyways, he also, there's been rumors going on saying that Laguna could possibly be Squall's father, and I think I could kind of see that, because they do kind of look a little bit similar, if you ask me. As for Laguna himself, well, he's more of a positive, upbeat, impulsive character in the game. But, I mean, hey, it's better than Squall's personality, because unlike Squall, who was just so emo and so, well, self-centered and a jerk to everyone, Laguna is really nice, and plus, he's a really more positive character, unlike Squall.
Listen, even if we lived in the same world, there'd come a time when life would pull us apart. It's not a reason to avoid people.
You do get to fight in battles with him, but there isn't too many battles that you could do since he's only temporarily in the dream sequences, but hey, it's better than nothing. As for himself, he mainly fights with just weapons like his trusty machine gun. He's got a Ragnarok cannon, which is pretty awesome. It's really cool. I mean, so basically, Laguna's just your man with the machine gun. Speaking of Man with the Machine Gun, that's the name of his theme song. And oh my gosh, I freaking love his theme song so freaking much. It is so catchy. I love it till the end of time, and I had so many memories with this song. I guess maybe I can explain something about that in another video. Overall, Laguna is a pretty cool character. If they make another Final Fantasy VIII remake, or maybe make a remaster or an actual remake of Final Fantasy VIII, I would love to see the big role that Laguna would take, and I would love to see him in general. So he's at number 8.
Squall, do you see what I'm saying? You gotta forget about the stuff you can't change and enjoy the now. I guess what I mean is, let's try to get along.
Number 9, we're at my 5th favorite game in the franchise, Final Fantasy IX. Oh my gosh, I still didn't play this game yet, but I really am wanting to play this game because, oh my gosh, this has got to be by far one of the coolest Final Fantasy games to ever been released. So basically with this game, they wanted to bring the series back to its old roots after Final Fantasy 7 and 8. Why? Well, you know how 7 and 8 takes place in like the cities and 1 through 6 takes place in like the medieval times? Well, with Final Fantasy 9, they wanted to go back to those good old days, and it looks really beautiful, and everything's so cartoony, the graphics are so cool, the cutscenes are beautiful, it's just so amazing. My favorite character from this game is a black mage named Vivi Orientor. Vivi is a small little black mage child who was created in some type of factory. Basically, all these black mages were being used as slaves in Alexandria, I think, and then basically there were some black mages who escaped and have their own free will, but eventually they will die. Now with Vivi, after being taken care of by one of the people who looks like Quina, and eventually losing him, he ends up going across the world and start to explore what life is like. Though things don't go good with him now that he's traveling with Zidane, Garnet, Steiner, and the others. As for the character himself, well, I love his design. He looks like the classic black mage and is so freaking cool. And that's kind of a crazy story about like the fact that he gets scared by the fact that you only have like a temporarily time to live and you'll never know when you're gonna die. That's kind of sad, to be honest. And I find that very scary towards Vivi, because I mean, I really feel bad for the dude. Other than that, he's a really good character. He's willing to help his friends and stuff. And yeah, as for battles, well, since he's a black mage, he's the best black mage spellcaster in the game. Enough said. I do like his trance mode. It looks pretty cool. I even like all of the fact that he could use 2 magic spells in one turn when he's in trance mode. But overall, Vivi is a really cool character and just overall enjoyable to love. Vivi is at number 9.
All I can tell you is that I'm willing to try. I'm going to prove myself to you and to your people.
Okay, so at number 10, we're at Final Fantasy X, and the last spot for our list. Alright, this game. It's one of the coolest games on the PlayStation 2. It was the first game with voice acting. It had amazing scenes. The soundtrack was pretty cool. And of course, it had a sequel called Final Fantasy X-2, which it was pretty good. Anyways, again, I haven't played the game yet, but I have watched videos about the game in general. As for main characters, I think the one character in this game that really stood out to me the most was Waka. Waka is one of Yuna's guardians and captain of a blitzball team called the Oryx. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. Even though the blitzball team always lose a match, but whatever. As for his character, he's a really nice guy. He's very kind-hearted to his brother Chapu. He grew up with Lulu since they were orphans, and he protected Yuna his whole life. And he even befriends Titus and requests his help to help them all defeat Sin. And because of his brother's death due to a Machina machine, something like that, Waka ends up hating Machina and, in fact, hating Albet because of that. Yeah, despite me not playing the game, I mean, this is as much as I know about Waka. Other than that, he basically fights using a blitzball. Yeah, of all the weapons that Waka could have, he uses a freaking blitzball as an attack. But hey, don't underestimate him because the Blitzball is actually really powerful. And other than that, he's also voiced by the same guy who does the voice of Jake the dog from Adventure Time. What more could you ask for? It's pretty hilarious and pretty cool. Overall, I believe Waka is a really good character, and that's why he's at number 10 of this list.
I'm Waka, coach and captain of the B-Side Aurochs, brother.
Aren't you Jake the dog from Adventure Time?
Aren't you Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank?
Touché.
And that's all we have for today. What did you guys think of this list? Sorry it was long. Let me know in the comments down below who's your favorite Final Fantasy character. Until then, stay tuned for more videos. Peace out, everyone.